Okay, so let's get started. Welcome to Goal Setting for 2026. This is a free training with a workshop, and I'm going to continue to drop that workbook in the link as people hop in. And I do know we have people who will be catching this on the replay. So if you're watching this on the replay, know that I will put this in the link to the workbook is in the link to the replay, so it'll be in your emails. So I am so excited to offer this webinar. I was looking back, and this is actually the fifth time I've done this training. The first one I did was in 2021, and so I'm like, holy cow, here we go. So for those of you who don't know me, and I know most of you on have a good idea of who I am, but my name is Katie, and I am an online business owner, entrepreneur, wear tons of hats. Dietitian Side Hustle is one of my main brands, in addition to the Geriatric Dietitian, High Calorie Recipes, and I am a blogger, a podcaster, mentor, and leader within the field. This slide here is just kind of some of my street cred, some of the places I've spoken, places I've been featured in media, and some of the products and programs that I have created and hosted over the years. So, on our agenda for today, over the next hour, we're going to be talking about quite a few things, starting off with becoming the 3%, the 10 steps to being a goal crusher, and then I'm going to be sharing my story with you. I've always called myself a goal crusher. I love setting big, audacious goals, pushing myself to set bigger goals. So, after I walk through the 10 steps of being a goal crusher yourself, I'm going to share my story because I think there's a lot of power in hearing stories of other people and seeing how they take the practical stuff that I'm teaching you and put it into real life. So there's going to be some mindset stuff thrown in there. And then I'm going to offer just some different opportunities for continued support if anyone leaving this webinar is like, okay, now what, Katie? What do we do? So I want to start off just with this belief that I have is that dietitians are world changers. Dietitians are amazing. We can do so many incredible, amazing things. And I truly believe that each and every one of you listening, you have a idea in your head, a dream in your heart, and if we could just get it out into the world would be radically changed by it. So by you showing up, setting big goals, setting audacious goals, you're going to impact people and change the world. So let's dive into the 3%. Now, I love listening to podcasts, and one of my favorite podcasts, and the first one that I started listening to, he's not as active anymore, but is the Blogging Millionaire podcast with Brandon Gailey. Now, Brandon is very much into data. And this particular podcast episode, he was talking all about goals. And he shared a lot of data that really stood out to me. So, the first piece he shared was that 83% of the population does not have goals. This was no surprise to me. No big surprise. But the next stats really stood out to me. He said that 14% of the population has a plan in mind, like, oh, I think I'd like to do this, but no written goals. But this group is 10 times more likely to be successful than the 83% who doesn't have any goals. But then the 3%. 3% of the population has written goals. They have taken those ideas out of their head, put them on paper, and this group is 300 times more likely to be successful than the 14% who are 10 times more likely than the 83% who do not have goals. So this is why I do this training. This is why I'm so passionate about goals. Part of it's going to be my own story that I'll be sharing with you guys, but then also because we just know that if you are able to write down goals, you are going to be so much more likely to be successful. So for those of you who are on live, and I do see more people have popped on, uh, think about it. What do you want to be? My hope is you want to be the 3%. And if that's you, go ahead and type 3% in the comments. So we are going to go over 10 steps for creating amazing goals and crushing them. Now, again, I do have a workbook. I am going to drop it again, just for those of you hopping on late. And well, not late, but when I do send out the replay, I will include the link to this workbook. So it's something that I'm going to have you guys do later. I was kind of going back and forth on, are we going to do this together during the call? But I think for a lot of you, you're going to need to have some good time to dream, to scheme, to come up with some stuff. So I'm holding up the workbook if you can see my little picture. And I've actually, I've gone through and done it myself because this isn't just something I teach. This is something I do every year myself. So we're going to go through the 10 steps to creating big audacious goals. And you'll see there's a lot more to it than just create a goal, because my goal is for you to pick goals that are appropriate for you and that you are more likely to achieve. Because we know as we go into the new year, people set resolutions. They're all excited and motivated the first couple weeks. And then all of a sudden at the end of the year, they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot I said I was going to do that. So these 10 steps are really what I do and what I teach my students, and how I can help you to not just set goals, but crush those goals and make them a reality. So I'm not going to read through all of this because we're going to go through them slide by slide. And as I share this, again, we're not going to sit down and go through everything together now, but I just want you guys to kind of think about it as I'm talking. Like, okay, how does this relate to me? What would I do when I sit down with my workbook and scheme and dream? And I'm going to encourage you guys at the end to schedule an hour to actually sit down with a workbook and do this work. But I want to tell you how to do it. So, the first step when it comes to setting big audacious goals is to figure out your why. There's a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. He was actually a speaker at FNCE several years ago. It was a virtual FNCE, so it must have been 2020 or 2021. But I remember when he spoke, I'm like, oh, he's good. And then I bought his book, Start With Why. and and I really teach this a lot with my students. And the whole concept of starting with why is understanding that we are all very busy humans. Now, many of you work full-time jobs, depending on the season of your life, a parent, a friend, you have hobbies. We all have many, many things to do. And when we're talking about setting goals and adding something in addition to what you're already doing, well, golly, you already have a lot on your plate. And we also know that as we move into 2026, life's gonna life. Things are gonna happen. Amazing things, hard things, things we didn't predict, things we didn't plan for. And so it's so important that when we create big goals that are gonna take time, that are gonna take energy, that we start with a strong foundation of why am I even doing this? Because if we don't start with why, when life starts lifing, those unpredictable things happen in 2026. If we don't have a strong foundation, if we don't have a strong why, we are going to be more likely to give up on these big goals that we'll be setting right now. So, in everything that I teach, we always start with why. So, one thing I like to say is there is no bad why. There is no wrong why. We are all different and unique people, and we all have different things that drive us. But think about, what is the thing that's driving you? What's the underlying reason behind why you want to set big goals and do the things that you want to do? Now, I'll give you some ideas if you're like, I don't know. Maybe it's relationships. For me, one of my biggest whys is my kids. I'll be sharing more of my story later in the training tonight, and you'll see, how my kids were my why and my driver. Maybe it's a relationship with a partner. Maybe it's relationships with your parents, your friends. Maybe you're a foster parent. Maybe it's just, I want to be present with those that I love the most. Maybe it's a vision you have of your future life. Like, I always dreamed I'd have this. I'd always dreamed life would look like this, and it's not looking like that right now. Maybe it's your faith. That's another big driver for me. My big why is my faith. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's the impact you want to make. We're healthcare professionals. We got into this field for a reason. And maybe our big why is, golly, I went through this. And then maybe I met a dietitian, completely changed my life. And now I want to prevent other people from walking through what I went through. So your personal story. It could also be finances. I want to make more money. I want to stop being stressed about paying the bills. I don't want to live paycheck to paycheck. If you have kids in childcare, that's like a second mortgage. Maybe it's time freedom to do what you want to do and spend time with those you want to spend time with. So, step number one, before we even get to writing our goals, is to figure out your why. Why are you even creating these goals? What's the reason for you, taking this additional time to create these tasks that you'll be doing? So, number one, start with why. Number two is begin with the end in mind. So this is kind of similar, but also kind of different. So this would be imagining. We are now at the end of 2026, and you and I are sitting down at a table having a conversation. What do you want to tell me? What do you want to be like? Oh my gosh, Katie, I did this. I accomplished this. This is the person I became. This is what I've accomplished. This is what I've done. What do you want life to look like? What do you want to have achieved? What do you want things to look like 1 year from now? So if we can begin with the end in mind, then we can kind of start reverse engineering and work backwards. So a lot of this workbook that I'm going to have you doing is just sitting down, scheming, dreaming, thinking, envisioning. And the next step is going to actually be where you sit down with pen and paper and start to dream. This is where I call it the brainstorm dump. Dump everything that you may want to achieve. And I recommend doing this quick, like don't overthink it. We have plenty of time to overthink. Don't overthink this here. Get everything out of your head and on paper. What are the things that you want? And it doesn't even have to be in 2026. Again, just get it all out of there. Again, we're all very different. So what you want may be different than someone else, but just start dreaming and scheming. Maybe you want to leave your job. Maybe you want to start that business. Maybe you want to add additional stream of income. Maybe you want to write that book. Whatever it is, get it out of your head and put it on paper. Then step number 4, and I will be sharing this when I share my story. But then I want you to look back at what you wrote down and I want you to dream bigger. And what I mean by this is kind of twofold. I want you to be very honest with yourself and is there anything you left out? Sometimes we have these big audacious dreams in our head or in our heart, and we're scared to speak it out into the world because we're like, that's too crazy. That would never work. That would never come true. Who do I think I am? And so sometimes we actually have to look and be like, am I dreaming big enough? Am I playing small? Am I trying to lower my expectations so I won't be disappointed? So I want you to go back and look at your list, and I want you to add anything that maybe you left out, or also maybe increase a goal. Or, I know we're not at the goal writing yet, but maybe your dream was like, I want to leave my job in 10 years. Maybe we should cut that in half and do 5 years. So pushing yourself to dream bigger. Then once we've figured out our why, we've begun with the end in mind. What do we want life to look like 1 year from now? We got all those ideas out of our head and on paper, and then we pushed ourselves to dream bigger. This is when we write our goals. So do you see there were 4 steps before we even got to goal setting? And this is all foundational stuff that if you do this, you're going to be more likely to have success. So step number 5 is to write down your goals. And I want to emphasize that these are SMART goals. We are dietitians. We know what SMART goals are: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. And the reason we want to do this is we don't want them to be pie in the sky. We want them to be, how do we know we actually achieved it? What measurement are we looking at? And then when are we going to do that? And that actually ties into our next step. Once you get your goals out, and one thing I do want to say, we're talking about a whole year in the workbook. I think there's there's 7 bullet points. You could do less, you could do more. Again, I always push you to dream big, but also like realistic that, don't get too crazy, but also don't play too small. So I know when I actually did it this year, I wrote 6 goals for the coming year. So once you write those goals, then we're going to go look at it and we're going to sort those goals into quarters. Now, 2026 is a long year, and we don't want to go guns blazing into the year and try to do everything all at once because we're just going to burn ourselves out and then just kind of be like, forget that. That was too much. So if we are strategic, we look at all the things we want to accomplish and when am I going to do them? So figuring out, I like to set goals by quarters. I do 90-day goals. I actually, I feel like this week has been my goal week. I have a planner that I keep that's 90 days. And so I have goals in here that are from the goal setting that I did from the workbook. So figuring out when am I going to do them? Some of the goals you set might not be something you tackle till Q4 that you're doing towards the end of the year. So we want to make sure that we space things out. And sometimes it's also strategic in the way that we do them. The order might make sense of, well, gosh, I got to do this before I do this. So one thing I do want to emphasize about the goals, I said write SMART goals, but remember these, we can change them. So maybe you wrote down an actual date in step 5, and then when you're looking at the whole year, you're like, oh, I need to tweak that. We're going to tweak away because we want to make something that works for us. So then, once we figured out all of our goals, when we are going to achieve them throughout the year, then we are going to add action steps under each goal. Now, this is actually very, very important because sometimes when we think of how busy we get during the year and we can be overwhelmed, we're like, okay, I have time to work on my goals right now, but I look at my goal and it feels so big and so overwhelming, I have no idea what to do or where to start. So creating some check boxes really feels good. And I will say, depending on your goals, you might set a goal and you know exactly what you need to do. You just have to do it. So checkbox X, Y, Z, write it down under the goal. Here are the exact steps I need to do in order to accomplish this goal. You also might not have any idea. So in that situation, your first checkbox is going to be figure out how to do this. Then once you figure it out, you can add those other checkboxes. But this is just going to make it easier for you when you have time. You go to tackle that goal, you know exactly what you need to do. It's taking a big goal and making it into small, actionable chunks. And remember, your first action could be figuring out how to actually do it. So, our next step is going to be to post your goals. Now, you could make yours really pretty. I'm trying to find mine. I There we go. So this I'm going to stop sharing my slides for a minute so you guys can actually see my goals because again, I do this myself. So this is my goals. So I ended up rewriting the goals and I have little check boxes underneath all of them. So that's what I'm going to post. I have it saved because I want to share it with you guys, but it's going to be posted on my it's going to be on my desk so I can see it every day. So, oh, did I share the right screen? Nope. Share screen too. So post them so that way you can see them. And this is important because again, we could set goals. We're so excited for 2026. But then we take these goals, we take these action items and we put it in a drawer somewhere. Or maybe you're someone who likes to print something out. You're like, my handwriting, I can't even read it. I'm going to type it out. You make it pretty. If you don't look at it again, you're going to forget about it. So step number 8 is post your goals. So that way you could look at it and see it preferably every single day to remind yourself what it is you're doing. And end of the year comes and you're not like, well, shoot, I did nothing. So step number 8 is to post your goals where you can see them so they continue to be top of mind. Step number 9 is to share with your community. Now, it can be very easy to set goals, and if no one knows that I set them, no one's going to know if I don't meet them. There's a lot of power in sharing with the right community and sharing with people. It's going to, first off, we tend to be more accountable to other people. If we tell someone else we're going to do it, we're more likely to do it than if we just say, no one knows, it's just me. And also, if you share with the right people, they could hold you accountable, but then also provide you encouragement and support, especially when unexpected stuff comes up and life gets really busy. So share it with your community. Some of you might have a community, some of you might need to build a community. Um, a good place I always like to mention, I'll mention it later in the training, is the Dietitian Side Hustle Facebook group is a really lovely free community, and that could be somewhere that you share. Just sharing with other people, putting it out into the world. So that way it's something you're more likely to do because you've now shared it with people. And finally, step number 10 is crush it. And what I mean by this is actually get to work. Setting the goals. This is the part where we dream, we scheme, we're excited, but then actually doing the work to make it happen. And the last piece I really want to emphasize about this workbook and about the goals you're setting is give yourself grace, be flexible. And I know for some dietitians being type A, we could be, well, I said I'm going to do exactly this, I have to do it. If you're going through the year and you realize I bit off more than I can chew, you're allowed to remove something from your list. If you start doing a goal and you realize, I actually don't like this, this is horrible, you don't have to do it. If you find yourself, for whatever reason, you said you'd do this goal in quarter 1, you didn't do it. Okay, I'll do it in Q2, you didn't do it. Q3, I didn't do it. Take time to evaluate. Why am I not doing this? What is the underlying issue that's making me not want to do this? And again, have grace with yourself. It's not like, there's no shame in this game, but why am I not doing it? Maybe it's not the right goal for you. Maybe it's something you really don't want to do. Maybe you're like, well, I see other people doing this, so I feel like it's what I should do, but it doesn't align with you and you just feel that in your guts, so that's why you're not doing it. So know with this document, it's a living, breathing document and you can change it. You can change goals, you can get rid of goals, you could tweak goals. If things aren't working, you are allowed to change it. But the biggest reason we want to change it is because we want you to keep going. We want you to crush it and not just give up, throw your hands up and be like, oh, too much. What did I do? So those are the 10 steps of crushing your goals, figuring out your why, beginning with the end in mind, sitting down with pen and paper and dreaming, then dreaming bigger, writing down your goals out of your head on paper, sorting them into quarters, adding action steps under each goal so you know exactly what you're doing, posting your goals so you can see them, share it with your community, and then get to work. So again, I have the workbook. I'm not going to share the whole thing right now. I'm just going to put it in the chat again if anyone else hopped on. So this will be in the link for the replay. I never know when I'm going to send out the replay. Usually I like to send it out tonight, but I got to download, upload. There's many steps and it's nighttime and dinner and all the things, but my goal is to get it out to you guys quick. But that is the link if you want to click on it and you can access it later. So I am going to encourage you guys to schedule an hour. I'll mention this before we wrap up, but schedule an hour sometime between now and the end of the week. I know a lot of you probably have off either the 31st or the 1st. Take advantage of that time. Schedule a whole hour with yourself to sit down and go through these steps, to scheme and dream and create goals that you can crush. Now, I want to pivot and shift into my story because, again, I think we could see so much from other people's stories. And my hope is in sharing my story, you guys can see how goals have completely changed my life. So I will say I've always been a goal setter, like a ridiculous goal setter, or like I said, I've always called myself a goal crusher. So we're going to go way back to right when I graduated. I graduated in 2008 with my master's degree, finished the dietetic internship. I'm entering into my new job. I am a newly minted dietitian. And the first thing I do is I set goals. So I set 4 big audacious goals. These are the big goals that I wanted to complete pretty much for the rest of my life. These are my big life goals. I wanted to become a geriatric dietitian. My first job was in home care, and so I wanted to make sure that I was able to specialize in geriatrics. I also love leadership, so I wanted to become the president of the Oregon Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, where I live. Because I am in geriatrics, I wanted to become the chair of the Healthy Aging Dietetic Practice Group, and I wanted to get my doctorate by 40. So because I am a goal crusher, and once I got into the field and really started volunteering and doing all these things, it turns out that I hit these goals real fast. Real fast. I mean, I was able to knock them out so much quicker than what I thought I would. So then here I am, 5 years into my career, and I'm like, okay, now what? These were my career goals. This is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. What am I going to do now? So about 5 years into my career, I had a coworker. I was working at the VA, and he was not a dietitian, but he told me that his goal was to hit 100K in 10 years. And what he meant by that is by the time I've been working at the VA in 10 years, I want to make 100K. And I was like, wow, that's a really cool goal. But that's a little too ambitious for me. So my goal became, what if I doubled my pay in my full-time job in 10 years? So when I started working at the VA, I was making 45,000 a year. So my goal was like, you know what? I want to hit 90,000 by the time I've been here 10 years. So that suddenly became my big audacious goal. So I started shifting from more like big things I wanted to do to more money making things. Now, again, because I'm a goal crusher, I ended up hitting that goal so much quicker than I thought I would. So here I am, 10 years in. I was like, okay, I ended up hitting that goal within 8 years. I was like, okay, what are the goals I want to hit? So now I'm like 10 years into my career. What if I hit 6 figures? So that 100K goal that my coworker had between my job and my side hustle, because at this point I had started side hustling. Now, I do want to mention for me, I did get rid of the goal of getting my doctorate by 40. I just realized it didn't align with what I wanted to do. And again, we are allowed to change our minds. Although I will say I kept this on my list a little longer than I planned, but I did eventually take off that goal of getting my doctorate. I'm now 42. I did not hit that goal, but I did take it off before I hit 40. So So 10 years in, my goal was to hit 6 figures between my job and my side hustle. And again, I hit that goal before 10 years. I'm like, okay, now what am I going to do? Because I kept hitting big goals. What am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? So 2019 was the start of income goals that I started, and I'll be sharing that for the next few years. Now, this picture, there's a couple pictures here on the screen, and these are a couple pictures I really love. So I mentioned that I had started side hustling. I was doing some gigs on the side. And in 2019, I was in Seattle, Washington for the Oregon and Washington Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Conference. At this conference, there were 3 amazing entrepreneurial dietitians speaking on the stage, and I swear they were speaking directly into my soul. And I was so motivated and inspired this day, and I decided I am going to do something big. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to do something big. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. All of these big ideas started popping up in my head. And this picture right here, if you can't tell, this is the Space Needle. This is the actual little, tower part where the elevator comes up. And if you've never been to the Space Needle, it has glass on the bottom. And so I wanted my dad to take a picture of me laying on the ground, and he thought it was silly. I'm like, no, this is good, Dad. But I love this picture because this picture is a day that I had a dream in my head. A fire lit in my heart this day, and I knew I was going to do something big. I just didn't know what it was yet. So, so 2019, I was so inspired this year, and this is the year I started these income goals, which I'll share more about as I started this brand dietitian side hustle. So, at the beginning of 2019, my big audacious goal was I wanted to make $300 per month. So I wanted to make $3,600 in my side hustle. And my whole goal behind this was I wanted to pay a bill. During the season, I had two children in daycare, and it was more than my mortgage. And I'm like, okay, I'm a dietitian, but I am living paycheck to paycheck. This is not fun. And so I just wanted to have some breathing room. I just wanted to be able to pay one bill a month, and that was the big goal that I set. Now, in July of 2019, I ended up listening to a Facebook Live at the group. It's not active anymore, but it was called Registered Dietitian Approved. They did these, weekly trainings in their Facebook group. And there was a physical therapist on there, and his name was Greg Todd. And he talked about business in a way I never heard before. And I was just suddenly like, oh man, I'm dreaming too small. I'm going to dream even bigger. This year, I did start my brand dietitian side hustle. I started my podcast, and my brand has continued to grow. My mindset continued to grow. The way I looked at goals continued to grow, and I just continued to dream bigger and bigger. So while my goal was to make 3,600 in my side hustle in 2019, by the time the year ended, I ended up making $7,500. Now, I was really excited about this. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so much more than what I thought was possible. So, as we moved into 2020, I set a new big, audacious goal. And that goal was to make $25,000 in my side hustle. I actually shared this on a blog article on my blog. I shared it in a podcast episode for Dietitian Side Hustle. And I will tell you, I was terrified to share it with the world because I did not really think I could do it. Dreams, but also, who do I think I am? So I set this goal, and I'm just going to kind of go a little bit faster. So by the time 2020 ended, I ended up making $33,500 in my side hustle. And I feel like every step of my journey, I'm like, oh my gosh. So then fast forwarding, as I entered 2021, I decided to create a new big goal. My goal for 2021 was I initially wanted to double my goal. Okay, I made 33,000. What if I put my goal at 60,000? That was actually my initial goal was 60,000. But then I was thinking about it. I encourage everyone else to dream really big. Why am I trying to play small? Not that 60,000 was small, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to go real big here. So I set a goal of making $100,000 in my side hustle. Again, I shared it on my podcast. I posted it on my blog article, and I 100% was like, this is not going to happen. This is going to be the year that I set the goal too big, and everyone's going to know I failed, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. But I set this big audacious goal, and I know I'm kind of going fast, not sharing every single bit and piece of the story, but I continued to add elements to my business. I started helping dietitians create online businesses, and I just continued to grow, working with business coaches and really expanding what I believe was possible. So as we ended 2021, my goal was to make $100,000 in a side hustle, which sounded insane. And when I ended the year, I ended up making $150,000 in a side hustle. So I'm just going to take a step back at my income goals, and I did share on my it's actually live on my website if you want to check it out, dietitiansidehustle.com on the blog. But I do share income reports for the first 3 years of my side hustle, and this is kind of showing how big things grew by setting these strategic goals. And every time I'm like, this is impossible. This is impossible. So in 2019, I made over $7,000 in my side hustle. 2020, I made over $33,000 in my side hustle. In 2021, I made over $150,000 in a side hustle. Now, I'm sharing this real story of my experience with setting goals, crushing goals, just because one of the things that I really learned on my journey is that it's our minds that could either limit or expand what we believe we could achieve. So one thing that I want to encourage you guys as you are sitting down doing your own goal setting is how big are you willing to dream? 2019, my big audacious goal was I wanted to pay get $300 a month to pay a bill. 2 years later, all of a sudden I'm like 6 figures in a side hustle. But it was because of who I was surrounding myself with, the books I was reading, what I was putting in my mind, what I was believing was possible, and the work that I was doing. So I want to share something else. This is actually something that I created in June of 2020. It was 2021. June 2021, that year that I hit 150,000 in my side hustle. So this is half a year in. So I am a big fan of vision boards. I make them every year. And this is a vision board that I had made during this time. And I put two pictures on here. One thing I do want to note is I didn't share this with anyone. No one, because these dreams were too crazy. But I actually did put a picture here. They're both under time. This is a picture of someone turning in their letter of resignation. I was working at the VA. At this point, I was making 6 figures at the VA as well. The VA is a real good job. great healthcare insurance, great benefits, pension, all the things. But the reason I wanted to turn in my letter of resignation is that I wanted to be more present with my kids. I had I still have these two kids, but I have two children, and I just felt like, man, I feel like I just had these kids and they were getting so old right before my eyes. I worked 4 10s at the VA, so I worked from 6:30 in the morning to 5 o'clock Monday through Thursday. And every morning as my kids were waking up, I was two towns over working my job. And I felt like I was missing moments with these kiddos. And so this picture, what I put here is it's a picture of a parent driving their kids to work. And it seems like such a small thing. But what I wanted more than anything was just those small, mundane moments in the morning with my kids because I didn't get them. So that came on the vision board as something that I wanted more than anything. Now, this particular year, again, I know I'm going through my story fast, but a lot of things happened. I'll kind of share bits and pieces of it as I go. But by the time this year ended, when I created this, I'm thinking maybe in 10 years, maybe in 5 years, if I'm crazy, I'll leave my job at the VA. 6 months later, I was able to leave my job at the VA. So this picture right here, I actually took a picture with my boss when I turned in my letter of resignation. And actually, it was 4 years ago on this date, December 29th was my last day working at the VA. I set this big goal. I put it on my vision board. I didn't tell anyone at that time, but a lot of things happened in the next 6 months where I was able to make this dream, this goal a reality. And then it was during winter break, but the next school day after that, this picture right here is me dropping off my kiddos as my first time as a full-time entrepreneur, being able to drive my kids to school. Now, I do like to note that it's my daughter Emily. This is still during the pandemic, so they still have their masks. And my son's there in spirit, but he was not going to wave at his mom in the school drop-off line. He was like, I'm out of here. He was like 11 at the time, or 10, so he was like out of there, but he's there in spirit. So, sharing this with you guys, I just want to encourage you that your dreams are possible. This picture right here that I shared, this was me in Seattle at the Oregon and Washington Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Conference in 2019. I just heard three amazing entrepreneurial dietitians speak. Dreaming, scheming, I'm going to do something. I have no idea what it is. This is me the next time that we were at this conference. Now, what happened after 2019? 2020 canceled, 2021 canceled. So the next time this conference happened, it was 2022. And I was actually on stage speaking as a full-time entrepreneur, something that this Katie being silly on the floor of the Space Needle could have not even comprehended. I would have never in a million years guessed that I would set goals so big and accomplish them that I would be standing on the stage speaking as one of those entrepreneurs. Now, I mentioned earlier in the training, like the power of the right community, sharing your goals and your dreams with people. And this is kind of the piece I skipped over in my story. But in 2021, in June, I did join a business mastermind. This is actually my business mastermind friends. And this is Greg right here, that guy that I met on that Facebook live in 2019 who really inspired me. I ended up getting in his world. And this is a picture in 2021. We were in person at a mastermind event in Florida. And at this event, we all have an ask. And my ask was, how can I continue to serve dietitians better? And each and every one of them told me, Katie, you need to leave your job. And I was very irritated at them because they were all wrong. They didn't know that my whole brand was Dietitian Side Hustle. I am a side hustler. I have a really good job. I'm paid well as a dietitian. I cannot ever leave my job. Even though I had already made that vision board with a picture of someone turning in their letter of resignation, but I hadn't told anyone that. So I remember this day I was very, very irritated with them. Very irritated. But I did make a commitment to myself that day, even though I didn't tell any of them till the next day at dinner. But I decided that 2021 would be the last year I ever worked at the VA. 1 year later, on the exact same date, we happened to be together in Clearwater, Florida, same crew. And 1 year later, I actually was a full-time entrepreneur and I was able to leave the VA much quicker. It was like 4 months after this picture, I left the VA. So now, you guys, I am a full-time entrepreneur. I've been a full-time entrepreneur for 4 years. I absolutely love what I do. I get to be present with my children. I get to be present with my parents who are aging, and I get to spend time with them that I would not otherwise be able to. I get to help dietitians build out their dreams. I get to do so many things to make impact in ways that I never thought was possible. So again, as you are dreaming, as you are setting goals, just remember that your dreams are possible. But we need to take the time and the steps to uncover those dreams and then create goals and a roadmap to make those dreams a reality. So I do want to go back and talk about dreams real quick. So I know I already kind of mentioned this, but remember my big audacious goal into 2019. I wanted to make $300 a month. I wanted to be able to pay a bill. But when I reflect back and I think about it, was that what I really wanted? Did I really just want to have some breathing room? What I really wanted was more time with these two and money to provide things that we didn't have. So the question is, why did I pick $300 a month and not quitting my job? Well, there are a thousand reasons. Number one was lack of awareness. Honestly, in 2019, I didn't even know this was possible. I'm like, no, I am a dietitian. This is the one path we go on, traditional job. And one thing I didn't add is I knew I didn't want to work with clients one on one. So, I was like, well, I can't be an entrepreneur. I don't want to work with clients. So, a lack of awareness of what was possible. I also had a lot of self doubt, pretty low confidence in that season, too. I saw other dietitians doing amazing things, but I didn't really believe I could do it. I also will say I had a fear of being greedy. I really struggled even with charging as I got started. I was like, I didn't want people to like think, oh, you're charging too much money, or who do you think you are? I had a lot of money mindset stuff going on. I also struggled with the who am I? Who am I to do this? These dietitians are awesome. These people are amazing, but I'm just Katie. Who am I? I was also in the wrong community. Not that it was a bad community, but I needed to be in the room with other people doing amazing things and seeing what was possible and having people to encourage me and push me along to where I got there. Joining a business mastermind for me, that is how I left my job. Other people saw in me things I couldn't see in myself. That's the only reason I left my job is because I was in the right rooms with the right people. And I also had a fixed mindset, which just means I always thought this is the way things are. Things never change. And I now have a growth mindset. So let's talk about audacious goals because I've thrown out that word quite a bit because I'm just really trying to encourage you guys to dream big and really question yourself. Are my dreams big enough? You guys have probably heard like ask better questions, get better answers. But I also think if we create better dreams, we build a better life. I'm actively living a dream I never thought was possible, and I am so grateful every single day. Actually, even today, it's been 4 years, and I was crying today with gratitude that I get to be home with my kids, that I get to have this flexible job, that I get to help other people pursue their dreams, that I get to make an impact in the field of geriatrics, and I'm still in awe. And I'm 4 years in. So I'm like, maybe someday this will wear off. I don't know. So let's talk about what it means to be audacious. So, being audacious means showing a willingness to take surprisingly bold risks. Synonyms include bold, daring, fearless, brave, reckless, unafraid, courageous, and gutsy. So, I am going to encourage you as you write your big goals. If it doesn't make your stomach twist and turn a little bit of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Who do I think I am? Then maybe you should push yourself to dream a little bit bigger. So, again, for the final time, are your dreams big enough? But I also want you to think about what you really want. I know some of you probably remember the movie The Notebook. If you guys remember the scene between Noah and Allie, and it's this is just a little meme I made a long time ago. I thought it was funny. Helping dietitians uncover their dreams. What do you want? It's not that simple. We often make things more complicated, but we have to get down to the root of what do I really want. So you guys can see I've been driving home step number 4 real hard. But the whole reason I'm sharing this with you, the whole reason I'm sharing my story is because the big goals that I set when I became a dietitian, as I've continued to, this whole evolution in my career to become an entrepreneur, I've continued to set bigger dreams, continue to surround myself with people who push me to dream bigger, continue to help more people. And I will say, as I got into this field, I had no idea I'd be doing what I'm doing and honestly living a life that just does feel like a dream. So, again, the Goal Crusher workbook is going to walk you through these 10 steps, and I'm just going to encourage you guys to set big, audacious goals that make your stomach twist and turn. So, let's talk about continued support because, again, you're going to complete this workbook, and then you might be like, well, now what? Now, what do I do, Katie? So, I have lots of different options for you, but I'm pointing you in the direction of free resources that I have, including a challenge I'm doing and one paid product, which is a book. So I'm just going to walk through some different options that I have just to help provide that continued support. I mentioned the power of the right community. I do run a Facebook group called Dietitian Side Hustle. Just search Dietitian Side Hustle under groups and click on it. You do have to like put in, put you're a dietitian, all those things, and get approval because we do get a lot of spammy people who try to get in there. But there are over 7,000 dietitians, NDTRs, students, people just like you who have these big audacious dreams and goals. So that's the first place that I would point you is joining the Dietitian Side Hustle Facebook group. I also have a podcast that I started well, actually, I started at the end of 2019. So this podcast, I continue to do weekly podcast episodes, except for not this week because I did take Christmas off. But this is, I mean, gosh, there's 281 episodes that you can listen to in your car, driving, walking, at the gym. You know, free content, educational, inspirational, entrepreneurial. So the podcast is a great resource. Also, my website, dietitiansidehustle.com. This whole website is meant to be a resource for dietitians to help you in entrepreneurship. This is just showing like the resource page. There's ideas for side hustles. There's helpful websites, Facebook groups to join, podcasts to listen to, entrepreneurial resources. There's just all kinds of information on this website. It's meant to be a resource for you. So then I also have a book. I just published it last month. I'm very excited about it. So I spent all this year writing this book called Dietitian Side Hustle. It is big. It is the actual print pages, it's like almost 400 pages. And so I've spent all year writing this. So this is a book that I also created to help you guys to really live your dreams, change the world. So this is a really helpful book. So it's available on Kindle for $9.99, Audible if you're on Audible, and then also paperback or hardcover. This is the hardcover one, if you can see my video. So anyways, it's a really helpful book and resource for you. And then finally, I do want to mention a free challenge that I am doing. So, bye, Liz. I'm just going to drop in katiedodd.com. That's my Linktree page because I don't have the direct link right now, but I will include this in the email. So, at the end of next month, I am doing a free 3-day side hustle starter challenge. I actually did this challenge in 2020 and I am bringing it back, of course, new, refreshed. It's going to align with the book and it's a completely free challenge and you'll leave it with starting the bones of your side hustle. And so in addition to having 3 days of working through building out your side hustle, there's going to be opportunities to win prizes. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be January 27th to 29th. So that's something else that you can join if you're looking for continued support and resources. So, wrapping it up, we've talked about a lot in the last 45 minutes. So, we talked about becoming the 3%, understanding that if you become the 3% who gets your big goals, ideas, dreams out of your head, put it on paper, you're going to be over 300 times more likely than those who have an idea but don't have any specific written goals. Then we went over the 10 steps to being a goal crusher. I provided the link to that workbook. I shared my story and hopefully a little mindset in there to show how I want you guys to dream real big. And then just some options for continued support. So I have action items for you because we're not done. This is the start, okay? This is the start. I do want to emphasize something actually before I say this. I went over some things pretty quickly because I got to be careful sometimes when I tell my story because we'll be here for 3 hours. But I did rush over some slides, but I did share that slide from July 2019, that Facebook Live from the Registered Dietitian Approved. Now, that was the first time I met my business coach, Greg Todd. He spoke about business in a way I never heard, and he completely inspired me and shifted and changed that trajectory that I was on in my career. And I feel like when we look back with hindsight, we could see so clearly those moments that changed everything for us. For me, being on that Facebook Live changed everything. I didn't start working with him right away. I didn't even join any of his programs for 6 months. And then even after that, it took me another year and a half before I joined his high-level programs. But when I look back on my own journey, I can see so clearly specific moments that changed everything for me. So one of my goals for you guys, one of my hopes for you guys, that by joining this little tiny training on goal setting for 2026, it becomes a moment for you that changes everything. It becomes a moment that you took what you learned on this training, you take this workbook and you take it so seriously and you set these big goals and you get to work and maybe it doesn't work out exactly like you planned. You might have to pivot, you might have to twist, you might have to turn, but you don't give up and you keep going and your life ends up looking completely different. These big goals you never thought were possible come true. And my hope is that this one little training just becomes that moment for you that changed everything. So this is your turn because I don't just want this to be a training like, oh, that was fun. I want you to print out that Goal Crusher workbook. I know some of you work better with digital, but I'm still a big fan of like, get pen to paper, find somewhere that you can dream and scheme by yourself. If you are a parent, try to maybe go to a coffee shop. If you have to lock yourself in a closet, I don't care where it is, but try to find somewhere where you're completely distracted so you could really truly do the work in this workbook. So find 1 hour, and this is something I want you to do now. So either right now or when you get off the webinar, I want you to find 1 hour in your schedule to create your goals. So 1 hour to go through this workbook. It might not take you that long. It might take longer, whatever it works. But print out the workbook, schedule an hour into your schedule this week to get it done. And then this is optional, you don't have to, but I'd love it if you could share your goals in the Dietitian Side Hustle Facebook group. If that feels too scary, because there's like 7,000 humans there who, don't worry, not 7,000 people don't see every post. You're fine. But you could share it with me via email. You could also share it with any community that you have around you. So maybe family or friends or other entrepreneurs or dietitians, but share your goals with someone. So, okay, guys, that's what I've got for you. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my slides. I'm going to look at the comments. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. But I'm going to look at the comments. Cool. Okay, so Catherine had to hop off. Diane, all those are scary terms to me. Yeah, yeah, cool. Michelle, this has been helpful. Oh, thank you. Going to get the book. Thanks. I can't believe I wrote a book, you guys. I know I shared my screen. It was tiny, but like I wrote a real book and I'm very, very proud of it. So it's how they're going to help people as you need it. Okay. You're welcome, Christina. You're welcome. Okay. Does anyone have questions? If you don't, that's okay. I feel like most of this was straightforward. Do you guys know what to do? Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Diane. It's one of those things like I feel like a lot of people we have these dreams of writing a book, but I will tell you I like masterminds. I joined a book writing mastermind because I knew I would not do this by myself. And even as I was writing this, I'm like, whose idea was it to write a book? This was a dumb idea. It's like when you're in the weeds of doing it, it's like so much work, but glad it's done now. Okay, you guys, well, thank you so much for joining me. As soon as this is downloaded, uploaded, I will send out a replay with the link to the workbook. But you guys have got this. Go out there, set those big, audacious goals for 2026. It's going to be the best year yet. Thanks, guys. Bye.